Hey there, guys. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and welcome to another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Today, we're taking a look at, yes, another mechanical keyboard, but this is a very exciting one for a couple of different reasons. The first being that this keyboard is from a company called Varmilo. And if you are a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, or if you've spent some time researching, like Googling top 10 mechanical keyboard lists and things like that, you may very well have come across Varmilo's name. They are a well-established and well-regarded manufacturer and designer of mechanical keyboards, known for creating premium products that really focus on the typing experience, creating a very premium feeling typing experience. And this is my first time looking at a Varmilo product, so I'm very keen to see if they live up to their reputation, if the product lives up to the hype, so to speak. But perhaps even more interesting than that, the product we're looking at here today, Varmilo's MA108M full-size mechanical keyboard, is the first product that Varmilo is shipping with their brand new switches in it. These switches are their electrostatic-capacitive V2 switches. That sounds like a mouthful. What does it mean? Basically, they work on a different operating principle than a conventional mechanical switch. In a conventional cherry-style mechanical switch, you have two contact leaves that make contact, physical contact, when the key switch is depressed, and that's how the keystroke is registered. That's all well and good, but because those physical pieces of metal do make contact and rub together, there's some friction there. Over time, that can cause wear. There's also issues with, oxidation, corrosion of metal, potentially. Electrostatic-capacitive switches, EC switches for short, that we're looking at here today, actually use basically proximity. They sense the proximity of the stem as the stem is depressed when you press down on the key. And when a certain proximity threshold is reached, that triggers the keystroke. There's no actual contact between metal parts inside these switches, and that purportedly can lead to much smoother switches, stabler switches, and switches with a much longer lifespan. At least that is what Varmilo is claiming with their EC V2 switches. This operating principle was originally pioneered by a company called Topray. You may have heard of them. They have a somewhat divisive switch that uses a sort of a hybrid rubber dome electrostatic capacitive mechanical technology, and they certainly have their adherents. But what Varmilo is doing here is they have taken that kind of EC technology and built it into a cherry style switch that looks and operates very much like what one expects out of a Cherry MX or similar switch. So it's very familiar to mechanical keyboard users. The switches on our board here today are going to be their EC V2 Sakura switches, which emulate Cherry MX Red switches. They are linear switches, but evidently improves on them in many ways. So that is perhaps what I'm most excited to check out here today. Are these EC V2 switches from Varmilo really all that they claim to be? So, this particular keyboard, the MA108M, is available only direct from Varmilo right now, as far as I know, although I think it will eventually be available from other vendors. But Varmilo was kind enough to send over one of these for us to take a look at here today. And if you are interested in checking it out at any point during this review, you can head on down below into the video description. There's a link there. You can click through and check it out for yourself. They retail for $157 direct from Varmilo currently. Varmilo also sent over a little key switch tester set that will allow us to take a look at their entire lineup of electrostatic-capacitive V2 switches that they are offering. And these are brand new. They just came out within the last month. So this is really exciting for me to check it out. I hope for you to check out and to watch and see as well. So that's quite a bit of technical preamble, but I felt it was necessary to explain why I'm so excited about this review. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at Varmilo's MA108M mechanical keyboard with their Sakura EC V2 switches. And here we have Varmilo's MA108 in box. And as you can see, it's a really lovely box. Part of Varmilo's whole aesthetic seems to be this sort of artistic, painterly look. They're very much about the art side of design. And so that is reflected in their packaging. And this is a very wide box. I can't really fit the whole thing in frame all at once, but you can see the majority of it here, and I'll move it over so you can see the rest of it in a second. But on this side, we have this gorgeous splash of watercolors, and then these just, I guess, like keys here. They're not really keys, it's like rectangles or something, squares with letters. I don't know. It's interesting, but and then just a clean white background. Another splash of watercolor just over here. And then over here, we just have Varmilo, it says, in a sort of a shiny foil stamp. Maybe you can see that. And that's everything on the front. On the front flap here, it says here, keyboard artist. I assume it says the same in Chinese, although I can't read it, of course. Again, they really like this sort of artistic aspect of keyboard design, which I think is pretty fun. Some of that watercolor splash carries around to the front here. We've just got a sticker with a barcode on the side here. Let's quickly read what it says here. It says MA108, the M model. I'm not sure what the M designates. And then down here, you can see it says Sakura, which is the switch type, the electrostatic-capacitive Sakura V2 switch, and then Moonlight, which is the colorway. Nothing on the spine of it, so to speak. Nothing on this side. And very little on the back, actually. Some certifications, the Varmilo branding, made in China. A lot of Chinese writing there. I assume that's some contact information. Or no, actually it's probably the same specs that we have here in English. Let me read them in English. It says here, mechanical keyboard, of course. Executive standard. I don't know what that is referring to, but manufacturer, contact info, yeah, and their website. Okay, that's everything. And that is literally the entirety of the outside of the package. I really appreciate how clean and relatively minimalistic it is, while still maintaining this very beautiful aesthetic. It definitely makes us feel like a premium product. And I will say, it's quite weighty and dense, so that bodes well for what is inside. Why don't we find out what's inside? Opens with two flaps, two little tabs on the front here. And there is the keyboard with a dust cover on top. I always love the sounds these dust covers make. I do find it a little funny, though, that they call them dust covers, because I don't think anyone ever really uses them for that purpose. I could be wrong, but I can't imagine many people put this on their keyboard while it's sitting on their desk. Over here, on the right-hand side, we've got a couple of accessories. We have a USB cable, USB-A on one end, and I'm presuming C on the other, hopefully. It's got this Varmilo branded cable wrap, which is nice, Velcro cable wrap. It's just a typical PVC coating, nothing fancy, no braided casing here or anything, which is actually a little surprising given the sort of premium feel of this package. I thought maybe they would spring for a more premium cable, but no. It says, just in case you need a reminder, USB right there on the housing, on the USB-A end. It comes with a little cap, gold-plated, or looks gold-ish. It may not actually be. And then I can't believe what I'm seeing here, but this is a mini USB connector. This is not Type-C. This is not even micro USB. This is an ancient connector, you guys. Rarely seen these days. Check it out. It used to be common a decade ago, or maybe 15 years ago. But yeah, you rarely see mini USB these days. That is perplexing and a kind of unfortunate choice on Varmilo's part for the connector. Why would they do that? Now, this is not the first time I've seen mini USB on a keyboard peripheral. On the Magic Force numpad that I reviewed, it had the mini USB. And a commenter actually on that video mentioned that sometimes mini USB is used for backwards compatibility reasons, so enthusiasts can use their old cables that they might have, because when you're really serious about your keyboards, you also have custom cables. And I can kind of buy that, but I just don't see the reason to try and keep this old standard alive. That seems like a weird choice on Varmilo's part. But anyway, personally, I would much rather see USB Type-C. We've also got, a little loud, what appear to be some spare keycaps. A caps lock, a num lock, and a scroll lock. And you'll notice that they are, they all have little shine-through windows on them for the LED to shine through. So presumably the ones that are on here are just opaque, and they don't have those little windows. But we will find out. And I guess this is just an aesthetic choice, so that if you want, you can have that. It's kind of nice. They include the option. This also gives us a good glimpse at these keycaps, and you can see they are very thick. These are made of PBT, which, as I've mentioned many times, is a high quality plastic that is seen on sort of higher grades of keycaps. It doesn't shine up from finger oils the same way that other plastics like ABS do. And it's got a really nice feel and sound to it. And these are very thick keycaps. I believe Varmilo says they are 1.3 millimeters, the PBT itself, which is really chunky. And I feel like it too. There's no flex on this whatsoever. The legends are printed using the dye sublimation technique, which basically means they will never wear out. Dye sub legends are effectively eternal. So that's very nice. And we have a keycap puller, which is Varmilo branded. You can see that on there. And it's the wire type, which is, of course, the superior type of keycap puller. So I'm glad to see that. No switch puller in here because these are not hot swappable. They're soldered on. As far as I know, there are no hot swappable electrostatic-capacitive boards. Okay. Off comes the dust cover, which has Varmilo branding on it. Side. The keyboard itself is wrapped in this kind of soft touch plastic. It's also very heavy for a keyboard with no battery in it. This thing is heckin' heavy. It feels very solid. I can't wait to get inside. Check it out. But very briefly, we'll do our due diligence here and take a quick peek at the included user guide. So let's put that there. Let's put the box aside. there's nothing else in that box. I'll tease you by keeping the keyboard there. It says on here, Varmilo electrostatic-capacitive mechanical keyboard. This applies to their 80% full size and what they call their 110% models, which are what we have here, the 108 key layout. So it looks like it's in Chinese, although there might be an English section. Yes, there is. There's actually quite a bit of stuff in here. And so yeah, the back half of this is in English, which is great. It actually talks all about the way the switches actuate, which is pretty cool. And this actually might be a good opportunity for us to take a look at the extra switches that Varmilo sent. Yes, they very kindly sent along a switch tester so that we can take a look at all three of their electrostatic-capacitive V2 switches that are currently available. That is their Rose, their Sakura, and their Daisy switches. I'm not going to go into the details on this here user guide, but it seems that it's actually fairly well localized, and it does include all of the function information that you need to know, as well as the switch function. You know, the way these EC switches actuate. So why don't we take this opportunity to look more closely at some of Varmilo's electrostatic-capacitive switches before we get to the keyboard itself. So here is the switch tester set that Varmilo sent along for us to take a look at. We'll take these switches out of the plastic in a second. They're just kind of hanging out in there. But you can see along the top we have some cherry switches. We have a cherry MX black, a red, and a blue. And then along the bottom we've got their sort of equivalents in these electrostatic capacitive or EC V2 switches from Varmilo. We have the Rose, Sakura, conspicuously empty spot for their Ivy switch, and the Daisy way over here. So what they're implying, of course, is that the Rose is somewhat like a Cherry MX Black in that it is a linear switch, and it's a bit heavier. It's not quite as heavy as a Black. It's got a 55 gram actuation force, so it's a bit lighter than a Cherry MX Black. The Sakura switches, which this board is equipped with, are equivalent to Cherry MX Reds. They have a 45 gram actuation force, and they are linear. The Ivies, which we do not have an example of here, unfortunately, because apparently they were not ready in time for this product sample when it shipped out, but evidently they are on their way. They are a clicky version of an electrostatic capacitive switch, which I would really have liked to try out, but alas, not going to happen today. But they are equivalent or similar to a Cherry MX Blue with that click slider and that very definite clicky feedback. And then finally, we have over here all on its own the Varmilo Daisy switch, Daisy V2, which is a linear switch that is even lighter than the Sakura or a Cherry MX Red. It only has a 35 gram actuation force, which is very light indeed, and it is again linear. Then we've got just a spare Varmilo keycap up here that they've given us for fun, I guess, just to fill it out, because there is really no Cherry MX equivalent to the Daisy, so make some kind of nice sounds. On the back here, you can see it says a little bit about the Varmilo EC V2 switches and the Cherry switches. So you might be wondering what the hoopla is about these EC switches, and in theory the benefits are that they have a much longer lifespan than a typical mechanical switch like a Cherry. They also are ostensibly smoother and more stable in their operation. So that's what we're going to evaluate here today. Let's just pull these out here and give them a feel. Oh, I see we've got an English and a Chinese version. That makes sense. So we can actually read about these switches in English if we want. What does it say here? Keycap for better testing. That's what it says for this keycap here. Yes, smoother and more stable is what they're saying about these switches. About the Ivy, it says tactile and clicky. Version is under developing. Stay tuned. Okay, well, let's check them out. I'm excited to feel them. So, here we have the Rose switch. Comes in this beautiful pinky color. Sort of a dark pink. Oh my, that is very smooth. So as a linear switch, there's no bump, there's no click, it's just smooth action all the way from top to bottom. And they're not lying when they say it's quite smooth and very stable. Just a little bit of wiggle there, but not much. Not much. So, the operating principle of these EC switches, this electrostatic-capacitive tech, is pretty cool. Now, I'm no electrician or electrical engineer, but my understanding of it is that the EC tech allows these switches to actuate. Oh my, that's also very smooth. Very smooth. To actuate without making physical contact inside the switch. So, a typical switch, a Cherry style mechanical switch, if I can get this out of here. There. Like this Cherry MX Red. The way it registers a keystroke is that you push down on this stem, it depresses a spring, and there are contacts, like leaf contacts inside. And by pushing down on it, you make those contacts make physical contact. That completes a circuit. The key press is registered. All well and good, except, of course, that every time those contacts come in contact, touch together, they are potentially wearing a little bit. And over time, that wear, as well as oxidation of the contacts, can eventually lead to the switch ceasing to function. Now, Cherry MX switches are rated for 50 million keystrokes apiece, so it takes quite a long time for that to happen, for them to cease functioning. But nonetheless, there is a lifespan to these switches. They also, of course, because they make physical contact, there is friction there, and that produces a feeling of less smoothness than there might be. A little bit of friction. That's part of what contributes to a slightly scratchier feeling switch. The ECV2 switches from Varmilo. Oh, you know what? I didn't think I'd be able to feel that much of a difference, but you really can. Cherry MX Reds are already pretty smooth, but there's a scratchiness to it that is not present in the EC switches. Here, I'll let you listen. Maybe you can even hear it. I'm going to bring these right up close to your ear. This is the cherry switch. Listen. You can hear a bit of that scratchiness and a little bit of pinging as well, very faintly. Now, the Varmilo ECV2 switch. What do you hear? It's quieter, isn't it? It's smoother. It's not as scratchy, and there's no pinging. Listen again. Again, for comparison, I'm going to do the Cherry MX Red in one ear, in your left ear, and the Varmilo Sakura V2 in your right ear. Okay, so here comes the Cherry. Here's the Varmilo. Wow, that really actually demonstrates very nicely the benefits of the electrostatic-capacitive contactless type switch, doesn't it? You can really hear it, and you can feel it, too. They definitely feel smoother and more stable. Now, the stability probably also partially comes from the box-type surround, which we've seen on many switches before, including Outemu type switches, Kale box switches, and others. But it's no doubt it is a nicer feeling switch. Cool. Okay. I'm actually glad that it's a noticeable difference because, sometimes these things are very subtle, but not in this case. We won't do the blue. You guys know what clicky switches sound like, but we will very quickly listen to Varmilo's Daisy switch, which comes in this pale yellow. You can see, of course, they also come with the opaque white bottom housing and the translucent top housing, which will allow LEDs to shine through. It's so light. It's like nothing. Very smooth. That's cool. So I kind of got sidetracked earlier, but I explained the way the Cherry switches work, but not the way these guys work. So the operating principle here is that there are a pair of electrodes inside, I guess one attached to the stem and one is affixed. And as they get closer together, I believe the capacitance between them increases, and that's detected by the keyboard. And when that capacitance reaches a certain threshold, then the key is triggered. But in essence, it means that the keystroke is detected by proximity of these two electrodes without contact actually having to be made. And the benefits, of course, are no friction between, contacting metallic parts, no wear, no corrosion of contact points, or oxidation of contact points, And this incredibly smooth actuation is a result, and evidently an extended lifetime, which does stand to reason. Makes sense to me. Okay, that's enough nerding out over Switch tech and feel for the moment. I hope you enjoyed that little exploration of these switches, though. Thanks to Varmilo, of course, for sending over this tester for us to take a look and check them out. But I know you guys are keen to get to the main event. I've been teasing it for long enough, so let's take a look at the keyboard. So it's got a sticky just a strip along the back here that we can undo. There we go. And out comes the board. Look at that. That is a gorgeous colorway. This is the Moonlight colorway, once again. Let's just put it down. Let's get this out of the way. And let's take a look at this. My goodness. Okay, so a few things immediately strike me. One, it's a very lovely colorway. We've got these dark gray modifiers, these light gray alphas, and these beautiful pale blue accent keys here and there. Also, we have a 108 key layout, so it's a perfectly standard ANSI layout, except we also have 4 additional media keys up here on the top right of the board. Other than that, though, it is a standard layout. The next thing that strikes me is this finish is a faux wood. Look at it. It's not real wood. It's not veneer or anything. It's not metal either. It is plastic, and it is a faux wood grain, which I've never seen before on a keyboard. But you know what? I kind of dig it. I'm sort of into it. It looks really nice with this colorway. You know, you could imagine it might look tacky, but I kind of don't think it does. It feels like a high quality plastic, very solid, and I think it actually looks pretty nice. You can see it there as well. It's a fairly convincing looking faux wood grain, isn't it? This thing also, as I've mentioned, is heavy. It is very dense. It does have a little bit of creak when I flex it. But actually, once I've done that, now it's kind of all out. I got the creakies out. And it's not creaking anymore. And there's zero flex, though. Like, watch. Yeah, this thing is not flexing. It is very solidly put together. It feels like there's basically no hollow space in here. The back, let's take a look at the back here. The back is also faux wood grain. It carries all the way around to the back here. And again, I think it still looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty nice. We have some anti-skid pads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anti-slip rubber feet. We've also got some flip-out feet here, 1 and 2. They are rubberized on the ends. They only have a single stage, so it's just one adjustment. We've also got here a plate on the back with sort of this shiny foil sticker. It's not metal, it's just a sticker, but with some basic information and certifications similar to what we actually saw on the box. Reading it, it says Varmilo, model MA108, article MA108O. Don't know what that part means. Serial number, some certifications, made in China. So in terms of the styling of the case, we do have a slight built-in slope here, just a couple degrees for ergonomics, presumably. The edges are all rounded off, very nice, smooth. We have our mini USB port on the back right corner here. I still don't know why. I just have no idea why you do that. But anyway, mini USB, there it is. And that's it around the outside edges. There's nothing else. And then around the edges on the back, we do have this slight stepped situation here. Let's see if I can show you a little better. There. You can see how the edge is just slightly stepped in like that. It makes it look a little nicer. It's a nice finish. But the real star of the show, I think, is what's underneath here, which is those lovely Sakura switches. So we did take a close look at one just a few moments ago, but let's just... Oh yes. Oh my gosh, you guys. Holy cow, that is smooth as butter. And stable too. Let's try the stabilized keys. Oh, you guys. Listen to that. It's so stable. And the stabilizers are clearly lubed. It is super smooth. Oh, they're amazing. Incredibly smooth. There's no rattle there. That is a high quality space bar. No rattle anywhere on that bar. That's incredible, actually. Those are without a doubt the nicest stabilized keys I've ever felt, like on a factory stock keyboard. They are incredibly smooth. They're incredibly stable. There's no rattle. There's almost no wiggle. Like, that's unprecedented, actually. And these individual keys, similarly, it all feels really, really nice. Wow. Very little pinging, listen. So the switches themselves, as we heard earlier, are really not very pingy at all. And then there must be some kind of dampening going on in here because it just feels super solid. There's no pinging, nothing. sound lovely? I just want to keep touching it. It feels really nice and it sounds really nice. This has got to be one of the best sounding keyboards I've ever typed on or pressed buttons on. I guess I haven't typed on it yet, but especially for a stock board. Okay, a couple things we're going to take a peek at here. Let's just pull off a keycap and take a look at one of those switches. One of those Sakura switches. So you can see, there it is, just in this little recess, hanging out there. This keyboard does have backlighting, but it's white only. But these are also not shine-through caps, so you know, there will be backlighting. Light will come out from between the keys, but that's about it. And these are probably opaque keycaps, I have to imagine. I don't think there'll be any light shining through because they are very thick PBT once again. Very, very stiff, very, very solid. They probably contribute to some of that really nice typing feel and sound. The other thing is, let's take a quick look at a stabilized key here. We'll just pull off the backspace. And I'm just going to verify that these are factory lubed. You know, it's always so hard to tell. Yeah, they definitely are, though. You can see it down in there, actually, if you look. Might be hard for you to see, but yeah, it might be a little dark. But down along the stabilizer bar, there's definitely lube in there. And the stabilizers themselves are just of very high quality. They feel great. Also, I'm not sure, but I think they might even be padded underneath or something. There's something under there. I can't quite see what it is, but it still has a pretty hard bottom out. Hard to say, but so stable, so smooth. And obviously the overall style of this board is this sort of recessed style. The keys are sunk down into the board, so it's a higher profile case. It's not the kind of floating island style that's so popular these days. But they are, of course, OEM keycaps, OEM profile. So we get this stepping as we go up the rows for ergonomic reasons. That's the idea, is it's more ergonomic. But they don't look quite as tall as you might be used to with OEM caps because they are slightly sunk into the case. So they, you know, from the side here, they look almost a bit more like cherry profile, don't they? It's a delightful sound. Okay, you guys, well, I think I've spent enough time poking and petting this keyboard here. Let's go check it out. We'll take a quick look at the lights. Not that there's much. I don't think there's any software to see. And then we'll take it for a typing test. That's what I'm most excited for. Let's go check it out. And here we have Varmilo's MA108M plugged in and, well, not illuminated exactly. It does have a backlight, as I mentioned. It's a white backlight, and it has exactly one effect. So I'll turn that on in a second, but I did just want to show you that I swapped out those keycaps that we saw earlier to put in those ones with the little window indicator lights in them, the little translucent bits that let the LED shine through. so you can see how those operate. Caps lock is similar, and a scroll lock as well. And that's because there's no indicator LEDs up here, right? Because we've got these additional media keys, dedicated media keys. Other media controls are available on the secondary function layer. Yes, there is a secondary function layer accessed by holding down function and using F7 through F12. We've got, play, pause, volume up, volume down, mute, all that good stuff there. So that's pretty much all there is to say about the secondary function layer. There is, of course, no backlighting, no wireless or anything like that. There is a very limited backlight, which I will show you right now. It is fixed white. We go function X to enable it. There it is. It's on. Function X to turn it off. But it does have a couple other little tricks. I'm actually going to just turn down this light here a little bit so you can see the backlight a bit better. There, you can probably see it a bit better now, hopefully. Function, now I'm trying to remember, function right, I believe. Yes, that changes it from a fixed solid mode to this breathing mode. It's a slow breathing mode, but there it is. It's actually quite calming, isn't it? We can change the speed, believe it or not. Holding function and pressing up will increase the speed, so there's maximum speed. Breathing faster now. And holding function pressing down slows it down. This is the slowest speed. That's maybe what it defaulted to. Yeah, that seems about right. It is very calming on its lowest speed. If we press function right again and turn it to the solid backlight mode, function up and down actually adjust the brightness. So there's our maximum brightness. And a few steps. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 brightness steps as well as off with function X. That's it. That is the extent of the backlight on this board. And you know what? I think I'm okay with that. It honestly, this board is not about RGB backlighting. It's not about gimmicky gaming functions. It's not about being extra. It's about doing one thing and doing it very well, and that is the typing experience. There isn't even a configuration software, as far as I know. So we're not going to be testing that out, but what we are going to do right now is take it for a typing test, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy the sound of this board. It is heavenly. It is honestly, bar none, the nicest sounding and perhaps nicest feeling board I have ever laid my fingers on and listened to. So, without further ado, let's take it for a typing test. right, so we've had a chance to unbox and inspect the MA108 from Varmilo. We've had a chance to check out the admittedly limited backlighting, and we've had a chance to see it and hear it in action with the typing test. So now's the part where I run down the things I really like about this keyboard, and that's a lot of things. And the things I didn't like so much about this keyboard, only a few things, little spoiler, before I give you my final verdict on this product. Starting over here with the pros, the things that I really liked about this keyboard. The first thing is its incredibly refined aesthetics. I think this keyboard looks really good. It did take me a little while to warm up to that faux wood grain look. That's the kind of thing that can be really corny looking, but with the colorway that Varmilo has implemented here and the quality of the plastics that they're using, it looks and feels really, really good. And despite the fact that the chassis is plastic, it doesn't look cheap. I think it looks premium and it feels premium too. It is very, very solid. That high quality aesthetic and build extends to the thick PBT die-sub keycaps. These are premium keycaps, perhaps the nicest I've ever seen included stock on a keyboard, and they feel like it. When you're typing on them, there's a solidity and a thickness to those keycaps that lets you know that you are typing on something that is premium and that the designers really cared about making a very special typing experience. The third thing that I really love about this keyboard, and probably my favorite thing, is those switches. The Sakura EC V2 switches are incredibly smooth, incredibly stable. They are, in fact, the smoothest and stablest switches I have ever laid my fingers on. And that, I must presume, is due to their electrostatic-capacitive tech that allows for a smoother action without the graininess from the friction and the contact between the leaves in a typical mechanical switch. So, are these switches everything they were hyped up to be? Yeah, I think they are. They feel really, really good. They sound really, really good. At times when I was typing, it felt like my fingers were just gliding, just flying across the keys. And this is a feeling that I have had before with particularly smooth, conventional mechanical switches, but it's uncommon, and these are, without a doubt, the smoothest that I have ever used. I would, however, really love it if Varmilo made a tactile version of these switches. They are making their IV types, which are going to be a clicky variant of this switch. And I would really like to get my hands on some of those at some point, because I think those could be something special. Perhaps that's something we can look at in a future relaxing review. But I really wish they had a tactile switch on their roadmap, something equivalent to a Cherry MX Brown, because that's my personal favorite type of switch. It doesn't seem like they have it, but I'm getting a little bit aside from the point here. The point is that the Sakura V2 switches that I tried out on this board are exceptional. Some of the best, nicest, smoothest, most stable mechanical switches that I have ever encountered. In a similar vein, we have some really excellent stabilizers on this board, and I didn't do a teardown of the board, so I'm not quite sure if that comes down to the stabilizers themselves or just the way they've been treated, like if they've been nicely lubricated, perhaps padded underneath in some way. It kind of looks like that from what you can see, just removing the keycap. And it certainly feels very, very silky smooth and incredibly stable, just like stabilizers ought to. There's zero rattle, there is zero binding, nothing like that. These are excellent, excellent stabilizers. And all of this combines to create what I'm simply referring to as a superior typing experience. And it's kind of weird to put that on here as a pro, like a point, like a feature. But my point here is that all these premium kind of aspects, this incredible attention to detail on Varmilo's part, combines together to be more than the sum of its parts. It almost feels like everything in this board has been very carefully selected and designed and is working together in some kind of perfect harmony to create this really pleasing typing and usage experience. And it's hard to describe objectively. It's the kind of thing where as soon as you put your fingers on it and start typing, you feel it. Like, this feels like a premium product, like an elevated typing experience, like something that is a very apparent cut above most other keyboards. And I think that's worth calling out on its own here. It really is something special. Now, with an effusive list of pros like that, you might not think I have very many cons to offer up, and I don't. And interestingly, none of these cons have to do with mistakes or manufacturing defects or quality control issues or anything like that. This keyboard is impeccably designed and built. The cons here have more to do with what are apparently fairly deliberate choices on the part of the designers, choices that I just maybe don't agree with. You'll see what I mean. The first con is the use of a mini USB connector. Now, I do understand there are reasons to use a mini USB connector for legacy compatibility, especially with people's custom cables and things like that. And with these sorts of premium keyboards, that does become a little bit more of a consideration. But beyond that, I really can't think of a good reason to be using a mini USB connection in 2020. This connector debuted like 20 years ago or something like that. And while it functions just fine, it's just not the most common type of cable these days. So if you do have like one cable, attached to your PC for your keyboards, and you'd like to swap them out, now granted, that's probably not a super common use case for most people, but it is for enthusiasts or for, reviewers like myself. If you're going to have one cable, it's going to be USB Type-C, because that is the modern standard. Most keyboards are using it these days, and it's reversible. It's easy. It doesn't matter which way you plug it in, up or down. Mini USB, non-reversible, very uncommon. And so it means that I have to have, like a separate cable specifically for this keyboard. It seems like a minor quibble, and in the grand scheme of things it is, but I just have a hard time understanding why Varmilo's designers made that choice. It can't be cost cutting. I don't think it's really any more expensive to put in a USB Type-C connector, and that doesn't seem like something they would be caring about anyway. Like, they seem to be very invested in doing what they have to create the best experience with this keyboard they can. So, bit of a head scratcher on the mini USB. The second con here, no RGB. Now, this is again a very deliberate choice on the part of Varmilo's designers, and for many people, some buyers anyway, this might be considered a blessing, like a selling point. For me, I have to put this here because it's just kind of expected of premium keyboards these days. Heck, even budget basement keyboards these days. And you can always turn it off if you don't like it. Like, it's just nice to have the option there. So we have white LEDs on this board, and that's fine. At least it's got some kind of backlighting, but it would have been nice if they'd just gone the extra step and offered the RGB backlighting if you want it, even if it was a small upcharge or something. But it seems like this board is not available with the RGB LEDs. And the final con is, again, what seems to be a deliberate choice on Varmilo's part, but is perhaps the biggest knock I have against this board, and that is that there is no software. So there is no way to rebind keys to record macros or anything like that using software from Varmilo. There are third-party options that you could download and use for this kind of thing, but nothing direct from the manufacturer that supports this keyboard specifically. And of course, keyboard software from manufacturers can often be a mixed bag, can often be jankier than it's worth. We've seen our fair share of really crappy keyboard software, but just something from Varmilo that allows for easy key remapping, easy macro recording, maybe editing the backlight even though it is fixed white. These kinds of things would be really nice to see. So what is my final verdict on Varmilo's MA108M mechanical keyboard? Well, this is a truly excellent keyboard, truly exceptional. It really is. It may not have features that you've come to expect at this price point, things like edge lighting or hot swap sockets or even RGB backlighting, for shame. But what it does offer is a truly superior typing and usage experience. Varmilo's Sakura EC V2 switches are the real deal. They are what they claim them to be, which is to say, hands down, the smoothest and most stable mechanical switches I have ever tried out. And these switches are well supported by the rest of the package, which includes all kinds of premium features and attention to detail, from the thick die-sub PBT keycaps to the incredible stabilizers, best stabilizers I've ever felt, to what appears to be a sound-dampened chassis that really just feels meaty and solid. It all comes together into this amazing package that is more than the sum of its parts. One gets the feeling that Varmilo's designers, engineers, the folks at Varmilo are really invested, genuinely invested in creating a premium typing experience that shines through. And I can attest to the fact that after using this keyboard for a couple of weeks, I feel truly spoiled. Like, it's hard to go back to other keyboards after typing on Varmilo's MA108M for a couple of weeks. My fingers feel quite spoiled. Now, this is not a keyboard for everyone, for instance, esports pros or just gamers looking for something with more flashy lights, more flashy features, something more feature rich. This probably isn't the keyboard for that crowd. This is the keyboard for typing purists, enthusiasts, people looking for the best typing experience possible. There are no flashing lights, no gimmicky features, no weird layouts, just a refined, incredibly well executed, full-size keyboard for those who prioritize an excellent, a truly superior typing experience. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of another relaxing review. Thanks to Varmilo for sending over the keyboard and switch tester set that we took a look at here today. And if you would like to check out or perhaps purchase for yourself a Varmilo MA108M or any of their other keyboards, and they do offer a lot of them, you can check that out at the link down below in the video description. And of course, special thanks to each and every one of you for watching. I hope that you found this informative, and I hope that you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Bye for now, my friends.